Hi, I'm Marlena Hollis, and I'm here today to read to you out of the book of Acts. And we're going to be starting in chapter 21 with verse 37, but we're also going to be focusing on chapter 22 through 25. So let's begin today and let's read. So it says, as Paul was about to be brought into the barracks, he said to the commander, "May I say something to you?" And he said, "Do you know Greek? Then you are not the Egyptian who some time ago stirred up a revolt and led the 4,000 men of the assassins out into the wilderness." But Paul said, "I'm a Jew of Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no insignificant city. And I beg you, allow me to speak to the people." When he had given him permission, Paul, standing on the stairs, motioned to the people with his hand, and when there was a great hush, he spoke to them in the Hebrew dialect, saying, chapter 22, let's start there. "Brethren and fathers, hear my defense, which I now offer to you." And when they heard that he was addressing them in the Hebrew dialect, they became even more quiet. And he said, "I am a Jew born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city, educated under Gamaliel, strictly according to the law of our fathers, being zealous for God just as you all are today. I persecuted this way to the death, binding and putting both men and women into prisons. As also the high priest and all the council of the elders can testify, from then I also received letters to the brethren and started off for Damascus in order to bring even those who were there to Jerusalem as prisoners to be punished. But it happened that as I was on my way approaching Damascus, about noontime, a very bright light suddenly flashed from heaven all around me. And I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, 'Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?' And I answered, 'Who are you, Lord?' And he said to me, 'I am Jesus the Nazarene, whom you are persecuting.' And those who were with me saw the light, to be sure, but did not understand the voice of the one who was speaking to me. And I said, 'What shall I do, Lord?' And the Lord said to me, 'Get up and go on into Damascus, and there you will be told of all that has been appointed for you to do.' But since I could not see because of the brightness of that light, I was led by the hand by those who were with me, and came into Damascus. A certain Ananias, a man who was devout by the standard of the law, and well spoken by all the Jews who lived there, came to me, and standing near said to me, 'Brother Saul, receive your sight.' And at that very time I looked up at him. And he said, 'The God of our fathers has appointed you to know his will and to see the righteous one and to hear an utterance from his mouth. For you will be a witness for him to all men of what you have seen and heard. Now why do you delay? Get up and be baptized and wash away your sins, calling on his name.' It happened when I returned to Jerusalem and was praying in the temple that I fell into a trance. And I saw him saying to me, 'Make haste and get out of Jerusalem quickly, because they will not accept your testimony about me.' And I said, 'Lord, they themselves understand that in one synagogue after another I used to imprison and beat those who believed in you. And when the blood of your witness Stephen was being shed, I also was standing by approving and watching out for the coats of those who were slaying him.' And he said to me, 'Go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles.' They listened to him up to this statement, and then they raised their voices and said, 'Away with such a fellow from the earth, for he should not be allowed to live.' And as they were crying out and throwing off their cloaks and tossing dust into the air, the commander ordered him to be brought into the barracks, stating that he should be examined by scourging, so that he might find out the reason why they were shouting against him that way. But when they stretched him out with thongs, Paul said to the centurion who was standing by, 'Is it lawful for you to scourge a man who is a Roman and uncondemned?' When the centurion heard this, he went to the commander and told him, saying, 'What are you about to do? For this man is a Roman.' The commander came and said to him, 'Tell me, are you a Roman?' And he said, 'Yes.' The commander asked, 'I acquired this citizenship with a large sum of money.' And Paul said, 'But I was actually born a citizen.' Therefore those who were about to examine him immediately let go of him. And the commander also was afraid when he found out that he was a Roman, and because he had put him in chains. But on the next day, wishing to know for certain why he had been accused by the Jews, he released him and ordered the chief priest and all the council to assemble, and brought Paul down and set before him. Chapter 23. Paul, looking intently at the council, said, "Brethren, I have lived my life with a perfectly good conscience before God up to this day." The high priest Ananias commanded those standing beside him to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to him, "God is going to strike you, you whitewashed wall. Do you sit to try me according to the law, and in violation of the law ordered me to be struck?" But the bystanders said, "Do you revile God's high priest?" And Paul said, "I was not aware, brethren, that he was a high priest, for it is written, 'You shall not speak evil of a ruler of your people.'" But perceiving that one group were Sadducees and that others were Pharisees, Paul began crying out in the council, "Brethren, I am a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees. I am on trial for hope and the resurrection of the dead." And he said this. As he said this, there occurred a dissension between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. For the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, nor an angel, nor a spirit, but the Pharisees acknowledge them all. And there occurred a great uproar, and some of the scribes of the Pharisaic party stood up and began to argue heatedly, saying, "We find nothing wrong with this man. Suppose a spirit or an angel has spoken to him." And as a great dissension was developing, the commander was afraid Paul would be torn to pieces by them, and he ordered the troops to go down, take him away from them by force, and bring him into the barracks. But on the night immediately following, the Lord stood at his side and said, "Take courage, for as you have solemnly witnessed to my cause at Jerusalem, so must you witness at Rome also." When it was day, the Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves under an oath, saying that they would neither eat nor drink until they had killed Paul. There were more than 40 who formed this plot. They came to the chief priest and the elders and said, "We have bound ourselves under a solemn oath to taste nothing until we have killed Paul. Now therefore you and the council notify the commander to bring him down to you, as though you were going to determine his case by a more thorough investigation, and we, for our part, are ready to slay him before he comes near the place." But the son of Paul's sister, heard of their ambush. And he came and entered the barracks and told Paul. Paul called one of the centurions to him and said, "Lead this young man to the commander, for he has something to report to him." So he took him and he led him to the commander and said, "Paul the prisoner called me to him and asked me to lead this young man to you, since he has something to tell you." The commander took him by the hand and, stepping aside, began to inquire of him privately, "What is it that you have to report to him?" And he said, "The Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul down tomorrow to the council, as though they were going to inquire somewhat more thoroughly about him. So do not listen to them, for more than 40 of them are lying in wait for him, who have bound themselves under a curse, not to eat nor drink until they slay him. And now they are ready and waiting for you, for the promise from you." So the commander let the young man go, instructing him, "Tell no one that you have notified me of these things." And he called to him 2 of the centurions and said, "Get 200 soldiers ready by the 3rd hour of the night to proceed to Caesarea, with 70 horsemen and 200 spearmen." They were also to provide mounts to put Paul on and bring him safely to Felix the governor. And he wrote a letter having this form: "Claudius Lysias, to the most excellent governor of Felix, greetings. When this man was arrested by the Jews and was about to be slain by them, I came up to them with the troops and rescued him, having learned that he was a Roman. And wanting to ascertain the charge for which they were accusing him, I brought him down to their council. And I found him to be accused over questions about their law, but under no accusation deserving death or imprisonment. When I was informed that there would be a plot against the man, I sent him to you at once, also instructing his accusers to bring charges against him before you." So the soldier, in accordance with their orders, took Paul and brought him by night to Antipatris. Yes, Antipatris. But the next day, leaving the horsemen to go on with him, they returned to the barracks. When these had come to Caesarea and delivered the letter to the governor, they also presented Paul to him. When he had read it, he asked from what province he was, and when he learned that he was from Cilicia, he said, "I will give you a hearing after your accusers arrive also," giving orders for him to be kept in Herod's, praetorium. There's a couple of words. They are a little questionable. Up for interpretation. Chapter 24. After 5 days, the high priest Ananias came down with some elders with an attorney named Tertullus. There's another one. And they brought charges to the governor against Paul. After Paul had been summoned, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying to the governor, "Since we have through you attained much peace, and since by your providence reforms are being carried out for this nation, we acknowledge this is every way and everywhere, most excellent Felix, with all thankfulness. But that I may not weary you any further, I beg you to grant us, by your kindness, a brief hearing. For we have found this man a real pest and fellow who stirs up dissension among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. And he even tried to desecrate the temple, and then we arrested him. We wanted to judge him according to our own law, but Lysias, the commander, came along and with much violence took him out of our hands, ordering his accusers to come before you. By examining him yourself concerning all these matters, you will be able to ascertain the things of which we accuse him. The Jews also joined in the attack, asserting that these things were so. When the governor had nodded for him to speak, Paul responded, knowing that for many years you have been a judge to this nation, I cheerfully make my defense. Since you can take note of the fact that no more than 12 days ago I went to Jerusalem to worship. Neither in the temple nor in the synagogues nor in the city itself did they find me carrying on a discussion with anyone or causing a riot. Nor can they prove to you the charges of which they now accuse me. But this I admit to you, that according to the way which they call a sect, I do serve the God of our fathers, believing everything that is in accordance with the law and that is written in the prophets. Having a hope in God, which these men cherish themselves, that there shall certainly be a resurrection of both the righteous and the wicked. In view of this, I also do my best to maintain always a blameless conscience before God and before men. Now, after several years, I came to bring alms to my nation and to present offerings, in which they found me occupied in the temple, having been purified without any crowd or uproar. But there were some Jews from Asia, who ought to have been present before you and to make accusations, if they should have anything against me. Or else let these men themselves tell what misdeed they found when I stood before the council. Other than for this one statement, which I shouted out while standing among them, for the resurrection of the dead, I am on trial before you today. But Felix, having a more exact knowledge about the way, put them off, saying, when Lysias, the commander, comes down, I will decide your case. Then he gave orders to the centurion for him to be kept in custody and yet have some freedom, and not to prevent any of his friends from ministering to him. But some days after Felix arrived with Drusilla his wife, who was Jewish, and sent for Paul and heard him speak about faith in Christ Jesus. But as he was discussing righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come, Felix became frightened and said, go away for the present, and when I find time I will summon you. At the same time, too, he was hoping that money would be given by Paul. Therefore, he also used to send for him quite often and converse with him. But after 2 years had passed, Felix was succeeded by Porcius Festus, and wishing to do the Jews a favor, Felix left Paul imprisoned. Chapter 25. Festus then, having arrived in the province 3 days later, went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. And the chief priest and the leading men of the Jews brought charges against Paul, and they were arguing him, requesting a concession against Paul, that he might have him brought to Jerusalem, at the same time setting an ambush to kill him on the way. Festus then answered Paul was being kept in custody at Caesarea, and that he himself was about to leave shortly. Therefore he said, let the influential men among you go there with me, and if there is anything wrong about the man, let them prosecute him. After he had spent not more than 8 or 10 days among them, he went down to Caesarea, and on the next day he took his seat on the tribunal and ordered Paul to be brought. After Paul arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many and serious charges against him, which they could not prove. While Paul said in his own defense, I have committed no offense, either against the law or the Jews, or against the temple, or against Caesar. But Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favor, answered Paul and said, are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and stand trial before me on these charges? But Paul said, I'm standing before Caesar's tribunal, where I ought to be tried. I've done no wrong to the Jews, as you all also very well know. If then I am a wrongdoer and have committed anything worthy of death, I do not refuse to die. But if none of these things is true of which these men accuse me, no one can hand me over to them. I appeal to Caesar. Then when Festus had conferred with his council, he answered, you have appealed to Caesar. Caesar, you shall go. Now when several days had elapsed, King Agrippa and Bernice arrived at Caesarea and paid their respects to Festus. While they were spending many days there, Festus laid Paul's case before the king, saying, there is a man who was left as a prisoner by Felix. And when I was at Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews brought charges against him, asking for a sentence of condemnation against him. I answered them that it is not the custom of the Romans to hand over any man before the accused meets his accusers face to face and has an opportunity to make his defense against the charges. So after they had assembled here, I did not delay, but on the next day took my seat on the tribunal and ordered the man to be brought before me. When the accusers stood up, they began bringing charges against him, not as such crimes as I was expecting, but they simply had some points of disagreement with him about their own religion and about a dead man, Jesus, whom Paul asserted to be alive. Being at a loss how to investigate such matters, I asked whether he was willing to go to Jerusalem and there stand trial on these matters. But when Paul appealed to be held in custody for the emperor's decision, I ordered him to be kept in custody until I send him to Caesar. Then Agrippa said to Festus, I also would like to hear the man myself. Tomorrow, he said, you shall hear him. So on the next day, when Agrippa came together with Bernice amid great pomp and entered the auditorium, accompanied by the commanders and the prominent men of the city, at the command of Festus, Paul was brought in. Festus said, King Agrippa and all you gentlemen here present with us, you see this man about whom all the people of the Jews appealed to me, both at Jerusalem and here, loudly declaring that he ought not to live any longer. But I found that he had committed nothing worthy of death, and since he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to send him. Yet I have nothing definite about him to write to my lord. Therefore I have brought him before you all, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after the investigation had taken place, I may have something to write. For it seems absurd to me in sending a prisoner not to indicate also the charges against him. That is our reading for today. I'm glad you tuned in. Be encouraged to continue in this process of reading the Word through in a year.
And welcome to Fear into Faith. This is our global Bible revival where we're on a mission to get 1 billion people to read God's Word cover to cover in a year. I'm your host, Summer Day, and with me today is Marlena Hollis. Oh, you made it. You flew in today. You made it.
I made it. I made it.
I don't know if we've had anybody who came straight from the airport, sliding in at home. It's impressive.
It was impressive. I was waiting for the rental car, and I met new friends. I met a lot of new friends. I invited a lot of people to watch the show. They're like, what are you doing in Dallas? I'm like, I'm going to hang out with Summer, and you don't know her, but you should. So I'm like directing people to the website, all the things. But anyways, it was great. My biggest thing was I need that car, and it was not coming.
Where did you fly in from?
I flew in from Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, okay.
Can't you tell?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Nashville, Tennessee,
Okay.
right here at you.
Tell us what you do.
Well, I am an itinerant minister, which basically means that I minister wherever God opens a door, there I am, and I say yes before he asks. I've already said the yes. And so I go and minister.
How come I haven't heard this term?
I don't know. You know what?
Apparently, that's what I am.
What am I? You're an itinerant minister?
I'm an itinerant minister.
I learned this word a year ago.
Good.
A year ago, I learned this word. I was with Tim Story. Don't know if you...
I just met him.
Yes.
I just met him. He spoke at an event, and I got to hang out. I got to sit next to him and then talk to him. He's amazing.
Great. He's amazing. I was at a coaching program with him.
Mm-hmm.
I was out on the West Coast. Never had been out there. Obviously, I was there with my Nashville self, hanging out with the great Tim Story.
Yeah.
And we were doing a similar concept of Master the Stage, and I felt led of the Lord to go be there. There's been so many beautiful things that's happened since then. But he was a huge blessing, and whenever I spoke, he was like, you have a gift. It was just really great. He was like, you have a gift. And I was like, thank you. You don't want to think that you need affirmation. But the fact is, we do.
Have you ever read the 5 love languages? One of them is words of affirmation.
It's mine.
I know that's mine. Let's go, T.
It's us. So that's where I met Tim. And he said, you're an itinerant minister. And I was like, what's that? So see?
Yeah, just like me. So that just means you travel around and minister where the Lord calls you.
Yes.
I love it. So you learned that term a year ago, but how long have you been doing that?
I've actually been in ministry since 2001. My daughter was born. It's actually her birthday today. We're feeling.
What's her name?
It is Abigail Hollis.
Abigail Hollis, happy birthday!
It's her birthday. So, I ministered when I was actually expecting my baby girl, Abigail. So God was birthing in me ministry, and He was giving me my first beautiful baby. That is
It was
total preacher.
It was a double. Two for the price of one.
That was a
So you have a daughter. Are you married?
married to my amazing husband, Brian. We've been married for 27 years this year. Yes, I'm 10. It was 10 when we got married. Oh, just kidding. I thought you were for a minute.
You said that so
I
quickly.
did. I
was like,
did.
What?
No.
How many kids do you guys have?
We have 3. And they're all beautiful girls.
All beautiful girls. So do you do anything else besides ministry?
I actually went full time into ministry in the last probably really a full 6 years. I was a cosmetologist in the cosmetology world forever, did cosmetology instructor, loved it. And a really big part of my story, Summer, is that God said for me to slaughter the ox and burn the plow.
Oh, wow.
And it was actually a really big moment because I had and I still have a real passion for teaching people how to do hair, skin, nails, and create a living. But I love doing it myself. And it was a ministry behind the chair all those years and doing nails as well.
Yeah.
But it was a time where I had to say, okay, God, I believe you've called me fully into ministry.
Yeah.
I've been doing it. But this is a different level.
Yeah.
And so I just believe God is just the word He gave me just this year. Well, again, last year was just this level up, not going forward, because you can go forward and move in a circle.
Yeah.
That's forward.
That's
You're
good.
not walking
Go forward and move in a circle. That's good.
and it's cycles, right?
Yeah.
And not that it's all bad. It's just it was time for me to move up into position of what God had called me
Yeah.
in this part of my life and my family's life, really.
What does your husband do?
He's a paramedic.
A paramedic.
Yeah.
Very different life.
It is very different. Yes. Total different personality. He's amazing, so supportive. Just without his support, there's no
You know,
way
when I
to
was
do
little, I thought I wanted to grow up and become a paramedic.
Really?
Then I had a friend who grew up and became a paramedic. And I started hearing some of the horror stories of like the real deal, because the paramedics do end up coming to places where people have passed and different things that could be pretty traumatic. And I learned it. That's a pretty intense job. I guess I don't want to have that one. So thanks that your husband's willing to do a job like that. I love it. So what was it like reading? You did it?
Oh,
wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, I really loved it. In fact, what I really liked is the authenticness of just reading that way, because I didn't get just a whole lot of notice. And so of course, you read the word, I'm a minister, but to go back and just take and solid read that out, knowing that I'm going to have hiccups, I'm not going to just speak it exactly right, but knowing that authentic reading of the word is all He asks. He's not looking for us to articulate every word or speak it out just so I really loved it. I felt really passionate about what you're doing. I love what you're doing.
Why do you love it?
I love it because you're encouraging people to do something that's intimidating to them. It's so intimidating to think about reading the Bible through in a year because they're like, I don't understand it. And
Or that's a lot. It's a very large book.
it is a large book.
Yeah.
It is, but it's doable, and you've made it doable.
Thank you. It's all the Lord. I'm here by the grace of God and a lot of kicking and screaming. Sometimes He had to drag me by the hair. When you were reading, what did you read?
I read the book of Acts, 22 through Acts and Romans, maybe? Hebrews.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you feel like God was talking to you at all when you were reading?
Really in the book of Hebrews, I just felt so passionate just about that better covenant. So for me, I always think, God, apply that to me first and then help me to bring that to someone else. And I just love that it's a far better covenant and that Jesus submitted. I love that He submitted to the process.
Yeah.
And, I think we miss that sometimes, that He actually came here and submitted to the process and grew in faith. You think, well, He was just full of that already. No, if you read the word, it's clearly states that He had to submit. He had to come into position to say, I'm yielded to the Father.
Yeah.
Grow me, grow in me, so that I can accomplish what I've been sent to the earth to do for mankind. It really ministered to me just reading it. I was like passionate. As I got into Hebrews, I was like, oh, I'm not being too extra.
You can't be too extra. We had an 8-year-old who came and read. I don't know if you've seen her episode.
No.
She started doing the voices. She was reading Esther, and she's reading Esther. And then she's like, and then Mordecai said, Esther, you must come to the banquet. Like she did. That was amazing. So no, you can't do too extra.
I'm going to watch.
Why do you think it's important for people to read the word?
I think that it's a tool, it's a weapon. And, just Luke chapter 4 is just something I've been stirring in that, ministering a lot, where Jesus didn't come at the devil with like quiet prayers. He came at them with speaking. He came at him with speaking the word.
Yeah, true. Okay, I'm gonna pause you right there.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. You have all the power within you to say no to fear. The world can't wait. We don't have time. We don't have time. We don't have time. You are not going to leave here in fear. Fear gets to go in Jesus' name. Welcome back, my friend. We're here with Marlena Hollis.
And I wanted to find out a little bit more about you and your story. I call it your God journey.
My God.
Yes, like were you born and raised in the church?
No.
Wait, hold on. I haven't asked that question.
That was so funny. I've asked that question to 100 plus people, and I've never had somebody pause and have their eyes go, no. That was the... I'm strapping in. I'm like, hang on.
There you go.
I'm ready.
How much do you want? No. Do you
All of
which
it.
version?
Oh,
Okay.
no, we want the long, juicy version.
Juicy.
Okay, so
Okay.
let me try again. Take 2. Were you born and raised in the church?
Summer, I was not born and raised in the church. In fact, we dabbled in church. When things were going bad, the family was like, let's run to church.
Yeah.
But I had a solid grandmother. Okay. Like my grandmother was very solid in the church. She was a solid Christian. I don't want to say just in the church. She was a solid Christian because, for church for me was just like, oh, a building. Oh, we might go to VBS and those little vanilla cookies and the red Kool-Aid, right? You didn't get what they get these days.
Yeah.
But no, I was not fully raised in the church. I was aware of salvation, aware of Jesus at an early age, because again, my grandmother and my parents did in fact attempt to go to church. You kind of get moving in that direction, and they did for a little while, but like so many, life hit them and they just didn't fulfill the things that God was convicting them about to get it together. So long story short, it was a really roller coaster ride of a childhood. I never knew when we were going to move, what we were going to do, and where we were going to be. And it wasn't because we were in the military. It was because it just was unsettled and just unstable. And through that, as a teenager, you don't develop like really friendships. And when you do, I was the redhead girl in the classroom that was really an anomaly. So I got made fun of a whole lot in school. And eventually, though, as I became a teenager, I just learned, okay, well, I would like to have friends and fit in. So you do what they do. So the party crowd starts happening.
Yeah.
So I got really heavy into the party scene at a very young age, probably even as early as 7th grade. I started partying with the older crowd. And so got really...
You can check out the rest of this interview right here or by going to BibleRevival.tv. And if this show has blessed you, you can help us bless others by partnering with us for as little as $20 a month and help us to expand the reach of this show. We'd also like to invite you to join our Kingdom Discipleship Program, where you have an opportunity to get on weekly Bible Zoom calls with us and people around the world to deep dive into His Word. And you can check all that out at BibleRevival.tv. I'll see you next time, my friend.